so there's part for inline and there's one for pop-up, right? So there are situations where you don't want the user to go out of the page, right? You want this whereby if there's time for payments, it will route the user to that same page rather than taking the guy instead of taking the guy outside the page. There's a part where you need to take the guy outside the page. It does like a redirect. And there's a part that's generate like a pop-up. So you keep the guy on that same page. So we have the one for redirects and we have the one for inline. So let's see how this works. So there's a sample, is like just like a demo. So you can see where I added the so this is sample scripts. That is this one here. Is this guy here. This one, this sample. So these were added here. This guy. But this one just for inline. Right. Then these are some form details that needs to be used for the payment. So let me open this guy now. So let's say we have, maybe there's a need for you to make a payment. Let's say you enter your name, last name, enter your email, enter a sample street, there's 223. Payment is where you need to, let's say the product name is this. The other items, the company you want to pay for is just a brief description. Total amount you're paying for is this guy. Then click on pay with Interswitch. So this is the one that, so it will take you to the payments, our Interswitch Payment Gateway page. Now this is where it takes you to, that's the inline. So more or less, I'll call it the pop-up version. So this one now shows you what you need to pay for basically. Either you want to pay with card, you want to pay with transfer, and you want to pay with quick teller. So this is the pay with transfer option that we want to really talk about, right? But either ways, you see any of these are the options that will be visible. And these options are actually configurable on your portal. That portal is called quick teller business. Now you want to pay with card, you can select card, input your card details. If you want to pay with transfer, you click on transfer. Then it generates, it will show you, so I've already opened it. So there are two types of transfer. We will have static and dynamic. Now, the static one is the one that an account number is provided for. It doesn't change per transaction. It's not upon request, right? Why the dynamic one changes for every time you want to initiate a new request, a new payment. So it generates a new dynamic account number. But we have for each of these accounts for transfer, we have different providers, right? Today we have integration with Wema Bank. We also have integration with Zenith for transfer. We also have integration with 9PSB today. We also have integration with different other providers. So, but there are two routes. We have static, and we also have dynamic. Right. So, but either of the options, some people prefer to generate a new account number, right? So that when that is done, that account number becomes invalid. So they don't need to keep that account number on regular basis. So when that is done, it's no longer needed. But there are some that you might need to, for every time that transaction needs to happen for transfer, he wants that a specific account to be showed up and the customer needs to transfer to that specific account. So what we have at the moment is whenever you want to do a transfer, you have to, when you do a transfer to this account, you click on I have transferred. And what happens at that point is we query the status of that transaction all the way to the provider that to the provider that's to that specific payment gateway, to that specific payment processor. In this case, is Wema Bank. So when that validation is done, we return the status of that transaction for you. So if I say I have transferred, the system will, but I've not done anything. This is just a demo test. It will load and does the validation checks and all. And if it's successful, then if the validation is done, maybe there's a check transaction status endpoint that gets called. When that check is done, we're good and is successful on the bank's end, they return the success response. And at this point, it will mark that transaction as successful. So for wallets, a wallet transaction is better use what? You can use actually dynamic. But either ways, you can still use majorly, yeah, you can still use static too. But majorly it's for dynamic. For wallet is basically suited for dynamic. So there are cases, but either way, it can still work for static. But in most cases, wallets, it's better you use the dynamic because today there are cases where you want to change that account number. So dynamic is actually suited for wallet transfer, for if you want to implement for wallet integration. Okay, so that's this part. So what are the APIs today that we can call? I don't know if you have any questions for this before I proceed. So this is a sample that I just showed for. So you can either so this is a sample I just showed for an integration to Interswitch for paywix for payment to other options, to different payment options. Just basically IPG, Interswitch Payment Gateway integration. So from that, you can have different payment options. Either you want to go the route of the customer wants to pay with cards, transfer, and all that. So we have all these options available. Now, there's an option for redirect. It's pretty much the same. There's an option for redirect. So let's see how the redirect works. I'll still show the okay, so yeah. So if you want to use the same sample scripts that I mentioned before, which is this guy, our Interswitch Payment Gateway. Okay, so this is guy too. This is sample scripts that we can use if we want to integrate to Interswitch Payment Gateway for the what's it called, for the redirect option. So let's see how that works too. So let's say I've already opened, let's say I want to pay 1,000, for instance. So you're going to make a payment. So it doesn't keep me on that page. It directs me to Interswitch Payment Gateway. See where the redirect happens. That realistically, you now see the URL showing is Interswitch. Some persons don't prefer to see that redirect, which is why they prefer that you're still on the site. A pop-up will just come up. You will not know that behind the scenes it's powered by Interswitch. But though from the logo you might see, but this logo is customizable though. Then this is a redirect option. Similarly, you can choose any of the payment options, but in this case, there's a configuration that we did to only choose allow for pay with cards, pay with quick teller, and pay with USSD. Why for this one, we allowed options for card, pay with transfer, and pay with quick teller. All these are configurable on your payable. And this happens on the portal. Now, so let's see how we can integrate to. So I don't know if that's clear. So like before I proceed with this for USSD, of any of the options that we have today. Yeah, you can select your bank. You select any of the banks, and it generates the USSD string that you can use to make your payment. So I don't know if you have any questions to ask before I proceed to the pay with transfer integration. And then do you have any questions to ask? It's just like a demo on how we can integrate in the Interswitch Payment Gateway. Or should we proceed?
Yeah, I think we can check off. If anyone has questions, they can just put it in the chat and then we can attend to it after.
Okay. So for the payment transfer, we have APIs that you can actually call to generate for dynamic, or if there's dynamic account generation, there's an API that I guess we can call to generate the virtual accounts that will be used for the customer to pay into, sort of. So I'll share other API now so that we can run some tests to see how that works. Okay, so where's this guy now? Okay, so if you want to integrate an Interswitch Payment Gateway for pay with transfer, right? So basically what you just need is to pass in, what you need basic information is the account name and your merchant code. Now, this is a sample payload on what you need to send. Let me pass for tests. I will use q.interswitchng.com. But before you can connect to this, you need to be able to generate what we call a passport token. So we need, before you can make this request, you should be able to generate what you call there's a passport, a token. And that token, so that token, the only way you can get that token is only if you are fully onboarded on the QuickTeller business, right? You're already onboarded, you're a fully onboarded merchant, you're an approved merchant. Then if you're an approved merchant, for you to be able to even call this API to generate a virtual account, because this virtual account majorly, if you are integrating to wallet, it suits you very well. So there's an endpoint to it that we call that endpoint passport. So it's basically to generate access token. So I will generate one now, one for tests so that we can use. I'll now show you how you can generate one. A second. Okay, so this is the endpoint. So basically now, for you to generate this endpoint now and generate a token, because it is that token that is required to call this virtual account. So how do you generate that token? Now, what you need in this token now, inside the authorization header, you need also called client ID and secrets. Question that is, how do you generate your own client ID and secrets? Today we have in our docs, there's some information on how you can, the basic authentication that you need. So if you go to our docs, you see a sample on how you see this guy, how you can get your client ID and secrets. Very, very important. That's the only way you can test. You see here how to generate your client ID and secrets. So without this, if you go to if the merchant goes to the portal, the merchant will go to what called developer console. When the merchant gets to the developer console, the merchant goes to integration. And inside integration, you see API/SDK integration. Then you copy your client ID and secrets. Let me show you a sample of what's obtainable on production. So this was obtainable on production. I will give you a sample of. So let's say there's already a merchant that wants to do an integration to the payment gateway. So now the merchant wants to integrate to the pay with transfer option directly. Maybe what the merchant is interested in just to pay with transfer wallets, sort of, right? Just pay with transfer. We also have wallet as an option, as a payment option. So maybe we'll have another session of that. Now, as I mentioned, the merchant needs access to what's called the developer console. In your developer console, you see the part for API/SDK integration. You see this guy here. This is what you call your client ID and secrets. Without this client ID and secret, you won't be able to generate an access token that will be needed to make any of those API calls to generate a virtual account or a dynamic account that the customer will be transferring to. It's virtual. It's not like a real account. So you need this guy, client ID and secret. So for now, because of test, I've assumed that I already have a client ID and secrets which have been generated. So I will generate a passport token with it. So either this is a base64 encoded string. So I don't know if you're conversant with base64, this is your username and password. So you use base64, encode these two guys to give a base64 string. So what we do is this. What this means is, if you check on charts, we check here, there's documentation on how to generate a base64 encoded string. So depend on the language that you're using, right? So, but you can easily check base64 encode. If you come here, you can just do, let's say, test as the username and test. So let's say, for instance, you encode. So it generates something like this. So this is what is expected. Based on each language, what you need to do is just to see how you can generate a base64 encoded string using the credentials, the client ID and secrets. So when you do, you pass in this guy, this is not your token, but it's passing as basic authorization. So it means that here, if I generate, what I'm going to pass is, it will be basic. It will be, what you're going to pass is, okay, let me use the different, here will be, it will be authorization. So it will be authorization that you have basic space. Let's see if this is your token that you've generated, you copy it, paste it here. Basic space, the token. When you fire it, it will not generate a bearer token, but you're passing the authorization header as basic auth. That's what you're going to pass. So me, I'm already using Postman for this test. So what I have here is implicitly converting to basic auth for me, the client ID and secret. So this is where I passed that guy. This two, I'm indicated it as basic auth. So this guy is generating the basic authorization for me, but it generates this combination of these two: client, the username space, the password. then generate as basic auth. So I think we'll have a documentation here that states how you can use it. So here's that docs. So we have a documentation that states how that can be used. Yeah, so let me go back here. So you can see what we did it here. So this is a sample in Java. So we have in Java, in JavaScript, in Python, and in C#. So for instance, in Java, your client ID, your secret, concatenate the client ID colon, the secret key, which is exactly what I did here as a sample. Client ID colon, the secret key. So after the concatenation, you now do in Java basic system, we have a library called, base 64. Use it to get the encoder method that there's another method called encode to string. Then you pass you generate a concatenated string, then you convert it to byte sample. This is just a sample. But either way, what you need is a basic authorization. So you generate the encoded string. Then inside your passport call, what you need to pass is basic space the token, the encoded string, and this is a sample here. So what you can do is that if you want to test it out, you can as well just come here and copy this guy and go to here, go to Postman, click on imports, import it as a call. So you want to import, pass the URL call. So you can come here, you transfer. I've already created a collection. Am I too fast? Can anyone hear me? Am I too fast? Or
I think your pace is fine.
okay. Chizurum, are you the one writing the code? Those that are listening, am I too fast? Okay, that's fine. So I already have a collection copy with transfer. So I've imported the collection. So it's just a copy. So it's the same thing we have here. So the only thing you now need here is what? I've imported the collection. Yeah. So you see this guy now. So what you just need to pass is authorization. Here, this is my headers. I've already done that here. Okay. So this is my guy now. You go inside the authorization. I've already imported the call. So what I have here is basic auths, right? So if I decode this one now, what would this guy give me? So how do you decode it? So let me paste the guy here. Okay, so is to encode. There's that guy put the code. Okay, it's like let me go to the decode part. It's supposed to be here. Okay. Let me click on the code. Okay, so if I paste this guy here, I click on the code, you can see that's giving me the decoded value, client ID and secret. That's what it has given me. You can see column. This part here is the client ID. While this part here is the secret. So this is the client ID and this is the secret as a sample. So if I come to Postman and fire this call, should be able to generate a passport token. You can see a passport token, right? So this is a passport token for on a test environment that you can use. So this is one of the first steps to ensure that you can generate a an authorization token that will be used to initiate any of those requests. Else is more or less is a security feature so that you ensure that anybody that is calling that endpoint is someone that will recognize on the platform. If we don't recognize on the platform, we'll bounce you. So without this token, we don't know you, right? So normally, now for you to tell the token expiration, normally that token expiration is within, in most cases, is 1 hour. But let me check what the expiration of this one is. You can copy out this token. Maybe it's configurable, but what we have today on the platform, is it expires within an hour, but I will still reconfirm if anything has changed. If you go to jwt.io, if you come here and paste that token, so if I come here and paste that token, you see the claims associated with that token. You see here, this expiration time, it expires, we generated it by 5, it will expire in 5:45. No, okay. Yes, that's September 27th. So it's like 24 hours after generation. So this one will take into, so it will take in these 24 hours. So it's expire within 24 hours in the next, by tomorrow, September 7th. So September 27th. If you want to still validate how to confirm this, what you can do is that go to epoch time converter. When you go to epoch, paste your token, human to type, human timestamp to human date. You give it September 27, 2025. Right? My GMT zone is 5:45. That was exactly when I initiated this request. So it expires at exactly this time. I don't know if that's clear. So that's how to, so majorly the token expires within 24 hours. Right? But this is for tests. And most likely the same thing on production. But I can still confirm if that has changed. It should be within 24 hours. So now at this point you have a valid token. I don't know if this is clear. Do you have any questions while we continue? No questions, so let's proceed. So this is one of my token, my client ID and secret. I said I'm going to generate, and I've generated. Because I have generated, so I'll copy out this token. I want to create a virtual account. So I'll go to the headers. Inside the headers, I need to pass in the authorization token. So I need to pass it. It's a bearer token, it's a JWT token. So I need to pass in bearer space token. So without this, it will not recognize me. So it means that if I come here and fire this call, you can see it returns unauthorized. Full authentication is required to access this resource. So even if I pass a token that is not correct, it will still bounce me. So the system wants to ensure that whatever token that you're passing is a valid token that Interswitch can recognize. The client ID is generated by Interswitch, and that's why you can be able to initiate that request. Now, if I now pass a token and call these endpoints, now it says merchant code not found because this is test, but I'll now put a valid merchant code that we can test with. So I'll now use MX607, which is one of our test merchants. Let me put account name. This is put an account name that I want to use for now as test. So I call it Nigeria. So I'll initiate the request now. So you can see this is sample response on what is obtainable. So it means that if I have a UI, if I already have a UI, before the customer goes ahead to pay, I would have initiated this request. So it means that on this pay page call, this call here, where's that page? For this part where I need to do transfer. When you click on transfer, if it is a dynamic, would have initiated this call here, is making a call to this guy to generate the account number. By then, what will be visible on that will be this account number that you see here. You see the account number the customer will be making payment to. In this case, the bank, because account numbers are generated, the account numbers generated are actually tied to the bank. In this case, one of the banks that we're using is Wema. So we would have generated an account number. So you come here. So the account number that will be visible at this point will be that virtual account number. There you see the bank name and the name of the beneficiary. So you see the beneficiary, you see the bank name. This bank, Wema Bank, you see will be the beneficiary name. You see there's a beneficiary that will be visible at this point. So then that's the account name, the guy that you will see there. Then that will be the beneficiary name. Then you see the bank code. The bank code will be showing Wema. So you see the bank name, the account number, the name of the bank, and the account where the money will be going to. At this point, it just is test. It's showing quick teller business as who will be benefiting from that transfer, from that transaction. If it's for the merchants, you see the name of the merchants there. That's more or less like you're transferring, making a transfer to that merchant account. So after that transaction is successful, the next will now be at this point where the customer needs to do a transfer to that account. Now the customer wants to now do the actual payment and transfer to the account, right? So when the customer attempts to do a transfer to the account, now Interswitch at this point does not have a clearer visibility on what is happening at that point, because that transfer leg is done outside of Interswitch's system, outside of the app. So it is done outside of the app, because I can decide to transfer from my mobile phone, can to transfer somewhere, but most eventually going to transfer. However, Interswitch has an integration with the bank that is handling the account number generation, right? That's providing the account. So because there's an integration with the bank, what happens is immediately that transfer has been done successfully, the bank notifies Interswitch via a callback. We'll call it a webhook URL. So we've already provided a webhook URL with the bank. So what happens is if the customer has completed the transaction via any of the banks, any of the apps, and the bank get notified, that transaction is confirmed, and the bank notifies Interswitch almost in real time. Realistically, it should be in real time. And immediately that transaction is successful, you can as well go ahead to say, I have transferred. It's just like an additional confirmation. Then we can now do a check transaction status. We'll confirm that if the transaction is complete or not from the bank's end. Why we even added this I have transferred? Because there are cases where the bank doesn't notify us in real time. So the best bet at this point is let us call the bank over an endpoint to validate the status of the transaction. That is why we normally will give the option for the customer to click I have transferred. So if you are doing your own integration, right, we have a way where we can notify you in real time. It means that as we are getting notification from the bank in real time, we can also notify you in real time using a webhook. So what that means is the merchants would have created a webhook URL. The webhook URL is just we call it a notification URL. So you need it basically to get any payment notification. You need it basically to get any payment notification from Interswitch for every transaction that happens on your platform. So as Interswitch is also getting notification from the bank, you also want to get your own notification so that you know how to treat the transaction. It's possible that you want to use that data for some other analysis, but it's good you also have that information. So it means that if Interswitch has been notified, we also notify you via a webhook URL. But before that will happen, you as a merchant needs to configure that webhook. That is the only way we can send you a notification whenever a transaction of such has happened. So if the customer clicks, I have transferred, they will now notify you. Somebody is asking a question before I proceed. So the question is, okay, I will answer this one. Was the redirect option for IPG updated? The previous one has pay with transfer. No. So why the other one changed was because we have a different payable. So a payable is a way to identify your gateway. I can have two different payables. Payables are just like identifiers for the gateway. So I want for this payment gateway A, I only want 3 payment options to be available. While for payment gateway B, I want this set of options to be available. The only way you can handle that situation is when you create multiple payables for your gateway. So it means that there are certain customers that are conversant with just paying with card, maybe for a particular business, while certain customers prefer to pay with, choose any of the options. So maybe most like what you now do is that create two payable gateway. We'll call it payable code for each of them. So the first one, because you've created a payable, you can pass the payable code and your merchant code. It will not generate the set of options that you want to see. But again, those set of options are configured for you per payable. But I will show you that. That is why you saw for one of them, the redirect one has transfer, the other one did not. The other one has transfer missing because we use different payables. Okay. How do you handle a situation where a customer sends an amount less than? So as long as it is for transfer, you must send the exact amounts. If you don't send the exact amounts, the bank will also bounce it. So you have to send the exact amounts. If, for instance, you want to do a transfer of 100 naira and the customer mistakenly passes 100 naira, 1 kobo, that transaction will fail, right? Because the expectation is that there's an amount that has been configured that, okay, this is what you're supposed to pass, and the customer has inputted that amount, right? There are some of the transfer transactions that are fixed. The merchant indicates the fixed amount, while there are some the customer passes the amount. But either ways, when the amount has been passed and the customer now transfers an amount that is less than or more than what is indicated on the checkout page, that transaction will fail, right? So what that means is if at this point we have 500 naira and transfer in your own integration, the merchant customer comes here, he saw 500, went to pay 501, the bank will bounce it, so the transaction will fail. It will not even go to be because the amount does not match. So that is why sometimes you hear, if you go to all these different what's it called, merchant location, you want to do a transaction, somebody transfer, say it did not go to one, they start complaining because of the scenario where what has been indicated for you to transfer to, you did something different, so it will not fail, it will fail. And the challenge is that sometimes there are some banks that don't validate the amounts. And what will happen at that point is because the bank did not validate the amount, the bank will pass the debits to the cardholder at that point. Now sends the notification to Interswitch. Interswitch now checks. I'm expecting to see 500, but I'm seeing 501. That's what the customer transferred. And at this point, the bank even acknowledged because there's a mismatch on the amounts. Interswitch will bounce that transaction. So to avoid any of those disparity, when the customer is transferring, you always notify the customer that send as is, else it will fail. Whether it is less or more, you have to send equal to. Now, since we already know, I've showed you how to, this actual first leg generates, the customer goes ahead to pay. So I said, okay, at that point, the only way you know that the transaction is successful is when Interswitch notifies you via a webhook. So the question is, how do you configure your webhook? How do you configure your webhook? So behind the scene, when the bank notifies Interswitch tries to notify you, but we are using what we call a queuing system. We dump the transaction inside a queue. So in this case, we have a distributed system called Kafka. That's what we're using. We have different distributed systems. But what we're using is Kafka. We dump the data in a queue. For all the parties that need to receive that notification, all the different clients, we try as much as possible to send that notification to you. When that notification has been sent successfully, it is acknowledged. Right? That's what we do. So we'll dump it in a queue and try to notify all the parties because we have different merchants we've had integration with. So a lot of customers have what's it called, webhook URL. So we'll also try to notify them. So let's see a sample now on how we can configure the webhook. So if you go to what's it called? Inside our C developer console, I've already logged in as a merchant. I showed you how to log in. You see the part called webhook. Okay, even before I go to webhook, so inside this part, you can create your gateways. This is how to these gateways. And how do you configure different options for your gateway? This is where it happens. So this guy has the merchant, this particular merchant has what to call these are payment options, has different payment options. Look at this guy. He created a payable called card only and disabled all the payment options. What this means that the payable associated with this gateway, if a customer wants to pay, he can only see card because he doesn't want to see other options. He disabled all these different options. This particular merchant who has different payables. If I click on UBA7, it's a different payable. The options that are enabled are just card, USSD, and transfer. Maybe if I check another payable, let's say test fix for gateway, this one enabled card payment, QR, and transfer. Maybe another integration. So these are different payable USD accounts. What is option? He disabled all the options for, maybe he's trying to run some tests. So I have also called transfer only. The merchant is only interested in transfer. He is not interested in card or anything. He enabled just transfer, and which is what you are trying to in the integration that we're doing. So the merchant only wants to see transfer as a payment option. Maybe the kind of customers that you have, they are not, which today a lot of people do transfer. The number of transactions coming through transfer is already a lot today. So if you want to enable your options, we have a gateway tool that has where you have all the options integrated. So these are the different options. This FBN gateway, we have cards, QR, and USSD. So it is actually flexible. But how do you create this gateway? So if you go to developer console, you can come here, add new gateway. If you come here, put your settlement account and you create, then you enable your options. We have this. All right. So now for the webhook, this is where you configure your webhook. Now for webhook integration, you need to provide your URL here as a sample. So what that means is whatever URL you provide, there's already a sample expectation of how the payload, because the question is now how we'll be sending you requests, right? So we have a secret key that you'll be passing. We also have all the notifications that you want to enable for. You need notifications for transactions, invoices, payment links, subscriptions, payouts, right? So you have all of this enabled. Now, how do you integrate to the gateway? We have a documentation here that will enable you. Okay, this one, this guy. Let me go to the documentation for webhook. If you come here, you can type webhook. So you see how the integration is done. So you see, yeah, we said webhooks are a way to receive real-time notifications of events on Interswitch. These are a to automate your workflows and all. To create the webhook, you have a webhook URL, just provide it here. Select event types that you want, go here, provide your webhook. For now, what we currently support is this. Payout is just recently added. for each type of event, this is what you're expecting. Created dates, updated dates, this. A transaction has been created for you. A customer has attempted to make a payment. This for the different, for the transaction event types, the description. This for subscription. This for payment link. Action, when it is successful. You see notification event, link of this successful. We have all of the, but this is a sample response that will be said. This is a sample response that will be sending to you. That is what you should be in your own API. This is what you'll be expecting as a payload. So what we are going to send to you is something like this. So it means that in your own implementation, you need to expose an API that will be expecting a request in this form. So when we are sending you requests for notification, we are sending you in this format. So it means that what you are going to configure your end, configure your API to accept this as is in this form. So this is a description of what the fields are. So when we have sent to you, you are supposed to return back a 200 OK that shows you received the notification. You have confirmed, you have acknowledged the notification, so you received, then you send back to us confirmed. So if you return any response other than 200, we will retry up to 5 times. Then we'll stop sending you that notification for that specific transaction. So the retry attempt is 5 times. We can't be sending you notifications severally and you keep bouncing it. So it means that when we send you, we expect to get a response, an HTTP response code of 200, which means you have acknowledged. When you have acknowledged, then we are good to go. Now, for message security, we said all webhooks are hashed with this. The hash is generated using the entire object received in the current notification object. The secret key used to hash is unique, blah, blah, blah. So the hash is this guy. You see the sample hash. So this is a sample. If the request we send you is this, the hash is going to be hex generated with your secret key. You already have your secret key. It will not be in this form. The hash is going to be hex encoded with your secret key. So if the hash you generate does not match the hash you receive in the signature, the request from us, then the request was not from us. So any request you receive with this guy is not a match. So this is already a sample that we have. I will show you the. So what happens is you compare the hash to the one we passed in the header. There's a header information. So when we send you the notification, there's in the header, you see this as a signature header. You can compare what you're receiving from us. So you can generate a hash, but that's your payload without your secret key, and compare what Interswitch is sending. If it doesn't jive, you know that it's not coming from us. Okay, so to verify each message, you need to do the following: generate another hash using FASHA152, your secret, and the raw JSON object you received. Compare the hash with the one Interswitch passed in the header. So Interswitch would have already generated a hash and pass it in this header. So when you generate your own with your secret key and compare with the hash Interswitch pass in this header, if it doesn't match, you know that it's not coming from us. So you can as well bounce it. So this is for the webhook. So I don't know. So that's where's that part? Yeah. Okay, so that's basically So that's basically it. I don't know if I have questions to add. So what I will do is maybe I'll need to based on the okay. So I think maybe we can ask questions at this point. So I don't know if you have questions to ask. I think somebody's hand is up.
Yeah, you can go. Sure.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So my
evening.
major question was not actually treated in this call. So I'm
Okay.
currently integrating outward transfers And from the documentation that I've read, it's three parts. You have to do the name inquiry, and then you trigger the transaction, and then the next one is transaction requery. My major problem with that is I don't understand the response codes that I get to receive from you guys that would identify if transactions were successful or not. So for triggering the transfer, right? It shows 90,000 response code. I believe that would be success, right?
90,000 is success.
Okay. So anything
But so
other than
realistically, it's 0-0. So realistically, it should be 0-0.
So
are you
yes,
saying that,
I went through the response codes. Some places I saw 0-0 and then I saw 90,000. So it makes me, I feel a bit confused now.
Okay.
I don't know which one do I focus on.
Okay. So so realistically, 0-0 we have in our response code.
Yeah.
There's 90,000 actually, yeah. But that one is there's some response. There's a different route where we go to a couple posterior. That's what we turn that response code. So 90,000 is successful. But for transfer, what you're supposed to get is 0-0. Because transfer will do directly to the banks. So what you're supposed to get is 0-0. That 90,000 is when we're doing card transactions routing towards called switch posterior. So that's why you can get 90,000. I don't know if that answers your question, but what for transfer, what you're going to get is 0-0.
Okay. I believe that works. And then with regards to other response code, I believe I saw some that were pointing to be pending. So all those ones are correct, right? I could
Yeah, those
just
ones are correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so when you see pending is not successful, right? So what you can only query the status of those transactions as long as it is not 0-0. So because there are cases where you have initiated a request, it has gone all the way, right? But the time frame for you to get a notification code, there could be a lag somewhere, and you don't get the notification immediately. So what that will mean is for you to even validate the status of that transaction is when you call the check transaction status endpoints. So when you call the check transaction status endpoint, so we'll have it here as well. I don't know if you saw it in the documentation, but it should be there. So when you call the check transaction status endpoints, what it now does is to check, to validate the status of that transaction and return, send you a response. Based on the response that you get, you see with 0 successful, you see 0-0, then you can now mark it as successful.
So I also came across the webhooks for inward transfers.
Okay.
Is there a webhook for telling us that outward transfer was successful?
So every successful transaction is 0-0, whether it is irrespective. So you see a 0-0 that shows it was successful.
So my question exactly is this. If I'm trying to make a transfer from my own system to probably another bank, right?
Okay.
I'm saying if the bank notifies you that the transfer I made from my system is now successful, to you people, is there like a webhook specifically for that? Because I noticed there's webhook for somebody making transfer into an account that I created.
Yeah, so I explained that. So what I said is when you transfer from your bank, as long as the request originated from Interswitch.
Yes.
So when the transfer has been done by the customer, the bank notifies Interswitch. Interswitch, they already provided a webhook URL to the bank.
Okay.
The customer has already done outward. So Interswitch already integrated with the bank using webhook. The bank has notified us.
All right.
Now, for we to notify you, you also need to configure a webhook so that you can get the notification in real time, which is why I mentioned that you need a webhook URL configured on our portal. We have a merchant portal. That's the one I showed, called Quick Teller Business. This is where I showed. This is where you can configure that. So if you don't configure that, there's no way you can get it, the notification in real time. So that's why I mentioned this is where you configure the webhook URL. So immediately you configure it and we get the notification, we also notify you in real time.
Okay. So if I get you correctly, for either inward and outward transactions, you guys would likely send us a webhook once we have it configured here, right?
Yes, we'll send you a notification, yes.
That works. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Chigo, there's a question in the chat. Let me just get it. Okay, so Ebunwankwo is asking, can these response codes be changed, or can there be a shared doc for these codes?
Yeah, we don't change the response codes. The response code has been there for years, right? So they don't really change. But what we need to we have a doc for it. So let me check. If you check the response code, the only thing is that we can always update. Okay, you meant if it can be changed on the documentation. We can always update the documentation if it's not clear enough. But let me confirm what we have on the docs. Say we have the different response codes. Let me search for it. I come here and search for response codes. So yeah. This response code and there's different statuses. Approved by financial institution, 10 successful, 00 successful. Yeah, this 09 pending, we have this to the Z6. Approved by 00, other response code invalid. These are different response code. Some of these response code are standard response code from the banks. Right? So these are what we call standard response code. So you can see 51 insufficient funds. We can see 61, which is transaction limit exceeded. So these are the different response codes. If there's a need to add more response code, we can update the doc. But most of the response code that you need would have been covered in this on this part of the doc. Does that answer your question? Yeah, there's a link actually. So let me drop it here. Has anyone integrated, maybe you've added a webhook URL on our, integrated a webhook on our platform before? Has anyone done that? If you've done that before, maybe I can see, or maybe like a thumbs up. Has any been done before? None. Okay. That nobody has integrated yet, provided webhook URL. So you've not really, okay, one person has, okay, one person, okay, that's fine. So how is the experience like with that integration?
I'm sorry, I actually raised my hand because I had a question.
Oh, you have a question. Okay. I was already jubilating. Okay, that's fine.
All right.
Feel free.
I currently don't have direct access to the console, right? There's this guy who basically does that. So currently we have it configured, but I'm yet to test it because we have to go first before I get to test it. But then my question is this: you said something about insufficient balance, and it got
51.
Yeah, so it got me a bit confused, right? If, say, for instance, on my own system, I get to increase a customer's account tier, right? And say, for instance, at the time I sent a request to generate a static account from your systems, it gets to generate an account that has, let's take for instance, 300,000 naira limit, transaction limit per month. So is there like an endpoint where I could call that would upgrade an account as fast as I'm upgrading my own system?
That one is for the bank. It's not us.
So
you have to do it from the bank.
Okay.
It's a bank thing. There's a bank thing. So Interswitch is not a bank.
Yeah.
Right? We are not. Interswitch is not a bank. So we're only partnering with the banks to make transactions seamless for everybody. So if a customer is trying to pay and money is not sufficient, there's no way to go through. So you get the notification, there's a notification that gets sent to us to show that it didn't go through. So you can get like a 51 insufficient balance.
I'm not even saying to insufficient balance. I'm saying transaction limit. Yes.
Okay.
Where there's created and it can exceed transaction limit of 300,000. Let's take, for instance, my customer wants to do 2 million in a day.
Okay. Oh, okay. But you as a merchant, there's a limit. So today there's a transaction limit per merchant today that we'll have. We can actually increase that limit.
Okay.
So today we have two different types of merchants. We have two types of business. We have startup business and we also have a registered business. For startup business, there's a limit to how much you can do today. For registered business, it can be upgraded. So even if when there's a limit on how much you can do as a startup business, there's no way customer can transfer as much as and it will accommodate you to bounce you.
All right, that works. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. So, other questions? Is the integration insightful, or you still need me to flesh out more things?
Anyone
Maybe in
who
the upcoming
needs you to
sessions.
flesh more details, upcoming session. Thank you very much for that. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Chigo. That was really, really good. And thank you so much, everyone, for participating. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Ada, and everybody else that joined and asked questions. So the recording will be available on YouTube by next week. If you're part of a community, you will definitely get to know. And then a newsletter will also be sent out just in case for anybody else who isn't a part of the community yet, although you should join. I think that wraps it up for today. We're just going to have another one of this in October, right? But the format might differ. It might just mean that we have an in-house walkthrough and then we share the link. But whatever the case is, I will let you people know. I think there's a hand up, Mr. Kemp. I think we can take one final question in a minute and we can call it an evening. So I'm just going to give you access to unmute your mic. Okay, so I think you can unmute your mic and share now.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, the last time on the call like this, I actually make a request that I'm not yet on the community on Slack. If someone can send me the link so I could probably join. I think I did not get that attention. So I want to ask again, how do I get to join the community on Slack?
Okay, so I'm going to put a link in the chat now. You can just click on that link and then you can join the community. That's all. Yeah, so the link is in the chat. That's basically just all you need to do. And you can always just DM me here or leave a question in the chat if after now you have issues joining. I think that's all. Thank you so much, everyone. And if you want to speak with Chigo more, or maybe someone from our engineering team, just let me know and I will link you up or I'll connect you with Chigo. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your weekend and see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah.